The Ravens had a top 5 offense last season thanks to the hiring of offensive coordinator Todd Monken, who elevated this unit to levels that we haven't seen before. And you know what's scary? This offense could be even better in 2024. You got Lamar Jackson coming off his second MVP award. And not just that, but he's coming off his best season as a passer. He set career highs in passing yards, touchdowns, and completion percentage. Meanwhile, he posted career lows in the rushing department. So for all you clowns that still like to use these outdated running back jokes, it's about time you go ahead and you put those to rest, because Todd Monken is relying more on Lamar Jackson's ability to throw the football than he is utilizing his legs. And with the addition of Derrick Henry, signing him to a 2-year deal worth $16 million, he could be the missing piece that the Ravens need to get over the hump. Because think about it. Why did Baltimore ultimately lose in the AFC Championship to Kansas City? Yes, Lamar Jackson did have a bad interception late, and you did have the Zay Flowers fumble, but they got away from their bread and butter, which was running the football. Because despite how good Lamar Jackson threw the football last season, the Ravens still were number 1 in the league in rushing yards per game. Derrick Henry, he may be up there in age. He's at 30 years old, which is the threshold that we start to see running backs decline. But to me, Derrick Henry still has 2-3 years left of high-level football, because he's a Hall of Fame caliber player. And Hall of Fame caliber players regress at a slower rate than normal players do. And last year, he was second in the league in rushing yards. He had 1,167. He had 12 touchdowns while averaging 4.2 yards per attempt. And you're going to have good depth behind him. You got Keaton Mitchell, who probably won't be ready at the start of this season. He's still recovering from that Week 15 ACL injury that he suffered. But you still do have Justice Hill. You got a rookie that you drafted out of Marshall who has really good agility and good explosiveness. So when it comes to the running back position, the Baltimore Ravens, not only do you have Derrick Henry carrying the load, but you got good depth right behind them. But what has me so excited about how good Baltimore's offense could be this year and why I think they can be better than what they were in 2023 is the upside that they have in this wide receiver room. Zay Flowers, as a rookie, was Lamar Jackson's go-to wide receiver. He led the team in receptions, yards, and targets. And him going into his second season, it's only right to expect him to improve. He probably should go over 1,000 yards. I could see him having somewhere around 10 to 12 touchdowns this year. You bring back Nelson Agholor on a 1-year deal, who was really productive, which was pretty surprising to me, because Nelson Agholor has always been a hot and cold player throughout his career. Sometimes he'll have a good season here. Sometimes I have a bad season there. But for the most part, I think he's a really good fit in this Ravens offense. He had 4 touchdowns, 381 receiving yards, and 35 catches last year. Now, Rashad Bateman, he really is going to be the key to the Ravens offense really being able to live up to their potential, because he needs to step up. This dude is a former first-round pick. He has struggled to stay on the field due to injuries over the last couple of years. And I was very shocked that he got an extension. They gave him a 2-year deal, but he needs to perform this year. And Todd Monken, a couple of months ago at the start of the offseason, said that he expects Rashad Bateman to have a tremendous season this year. So I'm going to take his word from that. But you did draft Devontae Walker, a rookie out of UNC, who could become a very good deep threat. And you got one of the best tight end duos in the league. Like when Mark Andrews went down, I was arguing with a homeboy saying that losing Mark Andrews isn't going to be as big as a loss as what people think, because the dude behind him, Isaiah Likely, was an absolute stud. I watched a lot of him when he was coming out of Coastal Carolina, and he definitely lived up to my expectations. He had 30 catches for 5 touchdowns, 411 receiving yards, and he was second on the team in yards per catch. So you look at the talent and depth that they have at wide receiver and tight end this year, this passing attack is going to be a lot more effective year 2 in Todd Monken's system than what it was in 2023, because they were still trying to get acclimated to the terminology, still trying to learn all the plays. Now everybody has a good understanding of the terminology and whatnot. Now it's just time to build on what you already put in place for last year. Now, the biggest question for Baltimore this year is going to be their offensive line. They lose 3 starters. They traded right tackle Morgan Moses to the New York Jets, and offensive guards John Simpson and Kevin Zeitler left for different destinations and free agency. Now, you do bring back Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, but he's getting old and he's regressing. But you got center Tyler Linderbaum, who is probably a top 3, top 5 center in the game right now. And most of the times when you end up having a really good center, your offensive line ends up performing at a pretty high level because the center is the quarterback of that unit. Now, I have a lot of confidence that Andrew Voorhees is going to be a really productive player. He's expected to start at left guard. He was a 7th-round pick in the 2023 NFL draft, and the only reason he fell that far was because he suffered an ACL injury at the combine that year, which tanked his stock. So the Ravens got an absolute steal being able to get Voorhees with, their last pick of that draft. And then you also going to have some competition to see who's going to be starting at right guard. Most people believe that it's going to be Ben Cleveland, who played well the final 2 weeks of last year and replaced the Kevin Zeitler. But you still have Amali Saleh, Laou, who was a 6th-round pick in the 2023 draft by Baltimore. He played offensive tackle at Oregon. He got converted to an offensive guard. He struggled during the preseason last year. So although there is a good chance that maybe he could start over Ben Cleveland, there also is a good chance that he might not even make the roster this year because he's a developmental project, but he has a lot of upsides. Really good athlete. He's big and powerful. And one thing about those Samoan offensive linemen, more time than not, they end up being good than they end up being bad. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up making huge steps in development this offseason. The only thing that he's really lacking is polishing up his technique. So if his footwork can get better and he can get a better understanding of playing that position, he could be a mauler in the run game for B-More this year if he ends up starting over Ben Cleveland, because many Ravens fans wanted Baltimore to go out and get a proven right guard, but their general manager and their head coach came out and said that, we like the guys who we currently have at guard, so there's no reason in wasting any draft picks on them. And they also signed Josh Jones to a 1-year deal, who previously played for the Arizona Cardinals. And the thing about Josh Jones is that he played every position on that offensive line but center. So you get somebody who has a lot of versatility. He can play left tackle, he can play right tackle for you, and he can play either guard spot for you. So also look for him to be in the mix when it comes to that right guard spot. So if I had to give you my projection for how I think the Ravens offensive line is going to look this upcoming season, that you got Ronnie Stanley and Andrew Voorhees and Tyler Linderbaum. And then your next 2 guys, you're going to have probably Ben Cleveland. And then that right tackle, that's a mystery that we're just going to have to see how that plays out. But for the most part, I think the Ravens are pretty set when it comes to their offensive line. Is it going to be great? No, but I don't think they're going to be necessarily bad neither. And I think that this should be a really good run blocking unit when it comes down to their ability to run the football. Pass protection, they may still be a little bit wonky, especially with Ronnie Stanley declining at such an alarming rate. But I think your offensive line shouldn't be the detriment of you this year. I don't think that it should cost you too many games. As a matter of fact, I don't expect it to be that big of a problem once we get into the season. You would like it to improve, but I don't see it just being so bad like how bad the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line has been for the last couple of seasons.